Looks like we're 100% certain that we're not sure.
Jer, obviously something requires burning. And since we don't want to set fire to your smoked cheese pig, why don't we try these?
Marshmallows! Ben, where are those hickory sticks?
Pick it up! Bet my money on a stupid horse, I lost that. So I ran out to the track to get my cash back. I just gotta leave this place with a big bag. So I found the fucking jockey and I grabbed it.
This is gonna be great, Charlie. I love helping kids. I love kids, Charlie. I love kids.
Tim, I would really not be screaming at the top of your lungs.
I'm having a digestive crisis and must focus on suppressing its expression.
Welcome to Marathon. May I help you?
Yes.
How may I help you?
You can start by wiping that fucking dumbass smile off your rosy fucking cheeks. Then you can give me a fucking automobile, a fucking Datsun, a fucking Toyota, a fucking Mustang, a fucking Buick, 4 fucking wheels and a seat.
I really don't care for the way you're speaking to me.
And I really don't care for the way your company left me in the middle of fucking nowhere with fucking keys to a fucking car that isn't fucking there. And I really didn't care to fucking walk down a fucking highway and across a fucking runway to get back here to have you smile at my fucking face. I want a fucking car right fucking now.
For God's sakes, you can pull the lid off your own can of pudding.
Fine, I will. Oh no, my pudding is trapped forever. So I can open my own can of pudding, can I? Shows what you know, Marge.
Welcome to Winning Time Tapes. Today I'm joined by my producer Grink.
Hello.
And today we're looking at if there is a perfect album. Now, this is not limit to 10 out of 10s. There are many albums you may find 10 out of 10s, but we're trying to look to see if there is one or how many perfect albums there are. So, what other criteria does it go into deeming a album as perfect? Is there does cultural impact matter?
I think
Or is
truly perfect, I'm not sure if cultural impact has to matter.
But it can only help you. It won't hurt you, but it's not a factor in being perfect.
I don't think that, no, or at least not as I understand it. It shouldn't really factor in. Like, if there's a reason for the album to be not perfect or not flawless, that shouldn't be papered over because it, was the defining album of a generation, culturally speaking.
Mm-hmm. And one other criteria that I think is important to clarify, can a perfect album have skips on it?
Yes, because skips are subjective. There's no such thing as a universal skip, besides maybe, sex skits on 90s rap albums.
Right. I was gonna mention skits as part of the skips thing.
But oh yeah, I think that you can have a perfect album with skits as well, because sometimes the skits, while skipped in the context of just listening to music, can be a part of an album that the skits actually contribute to in a positive way when regarding the album as a whole. But it can have skips, but it needs to constantly be executing its ideas perfectly.
Mm-hmm. So we're looking at a bit of a range for, different types of music for what could possibly be in the perfect album. We got a lot of pop, rock, rap, a couple of folk-like stuff on here. There's not going to be a whole bunch of jazz or pre-60s stuff represented as albums, because not really albums were designed in an album way.
Yeah, certainly with pop music, it was more about 45s, and, we're not jazz bows here. We don't have a good sense for that kind of stuff, but there are a couple examples that I can think of off the top of my head that would be pretty easy to argue are perfect.
Yeah, so I have a list of about 60, which again, we may not get to all of them today, or we might make this a two-parter if necessary. Is there anywhere you'd like to start? My list of 60 is in, release order.
Chronological?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think there's any particular place I want to start. We can go chronological. I just also want to say, I know you mentioned it as well, but I'm pretty easy with giving 10s. I probably give out more 10s than most, but I do think that a 10 is different from perfect. You can be a 10, but have major flaws. I don't think you could reasonably call the Beatles a 10 out of the White Album a perfect album. There's just too much refuse in there. Paul has made the argument that, hey, we're the Beatles, we can do what we want, and I would give the White Album a 10, but it didn't make the list for me. It didn't make my starter list. I don't know. I'm looking. It doesn't. It made it for you.
I have it featured as, again, these are for me 60 contenders.
Potentials.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's just kind of start going through your list, and I'll toss maybe an album in here or there for consideration, maybe some of which you haven't heard, and in that case we can kind of brush by them. But
so I have things at the top of my list like Kind of Blue as my jazz representation. Came out, I believe, in 59 by Miles Davis.
Yeah.
And the other one I'd have is probably the only live album I have featured on my list, which is Live at the Apollo by James Brown.
Yeah, that's probably the best live album.
Yeah, so again, I don't have a connection with them. I think, again, they're great, listen to all the way through. I wouldn't say there's there's not a lot of valleys in this experience, but not a lot of highs to me that are worth connecting to. I just think it being one of, or the best live album is important, but I also wouldn't call it perfect.
I wouldn't call it perfect either. I have listened to it recently, actually, and it just doesn't have the kind of I think albums. Perfect albums are kind of transcendent, and Brown is transcendent in his performance, but the music itself isn't transcendent in the way I would typically think of a perfect album being, if that makes sense. And no disrespect, I would give it a 10.
I agree. So for me, the more conventional compilation of songs that are actual constructed album, we're going into Dylan and Beatles to start in the early 60s.
You had a kind of Blue on there as a nod to jazz. It's it's the best jazz album probably. I've listened to it a handful of times. Coltrane and Bill Evans, maybe the best jazz pianist and best jazz saxophonist, are featured in the sextet. The other album that I want to shout out for jazz that I've actually listened to maybe 40 times, my friend had it on vinyl and we spun it a lot, is A Love Supreme by Coltrane. I think that's the other one that even if you don't like jazz at all, you will hear those two albums and be like, oh, okay, I get how people would become obsessed with this stuff.
Yeah, I agree with Love Supreme.
Okay, yes, but now we're getting into early Dylan and early Beatles.
Yeah.
So Dylan was by far. What's the age relate? He was a little bit older than them.
No, well, he's kind of their age. He was born.
Age?
Yeah, he's. If you want to get real nerd glasses, he's younger than John but older than Paul.
Oh wow. Okay, so yes, kind of smack dab.
Yeah, he was born in 41.
In the middle. All right. But he's I would say, a much more mature artist at this point in time
Yes.
than the Beatles. You have Freewheelin here.
This was still no electric guitar. This was all acoustic folk stuff. Stuff like A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, Don't Think Twice, It's Alright.
Yeah, at points, my favorite Bob Dylan. I don't know what accent I just at points, my favorite Dylan. Masters of War.
Blowing in the Wind is gonna be
Yeah.
the single people will think this out. Maybe Don't Think Twice, alright, but Blowing in the Wind is probably the most popular one.
Yeah, I think if it's a 10 song album, it would be in perfect striking distance. But unfortunately, I think the tail end of side 2, the traditional Karina Karina, Honey Just Allow Me One More Chance, and I Shall Be Free.
I personally like Karina Karina.
Yeah, but it's a traditional folk song,
right?
And so, if he was like wall to wall original like masterpiece compositions, I would be more open to calling it perfect. For me, it stands at like a hard 9, soft 10, but I would not stamp it perfect. What about you?
Yeah.
He has a level to go up. That's the issue as well.
Yeah, we know what he could be given being in 2024. I probably grade like a tad bit harder than you, I think. So I would say more 8.5, 9 is what I would give Freewheelin', even though I think this is the first, to me, album that could be considered a perfect album, especially given the time.
Yeah, Van Morrison said about the album, I heard it in a record shop in Smith Street, and I just thought it was incredible that this guy's not singing about Moon in June and he's getting away with it. That's what I thought at the time. The subject matter wasn't pop songs, and I thought this kind of opens the whole thing up. Dylan put it into the mainstream that this could be done. So we talk about how the Beatles finally moved away from love songs in '64, I believe, with maybe Nowhere Man, arguably, or I Feel Fine, or no, not I Feel Fine. But...
Yeah, I would say Rubber Soul's Nowhere Man is the point where Beatles like start evolving away from just love and kind of feelings being their subject matter.
But Dylan got there first, and he did it amazingly, but not quite there. All right. Now, speaking of...
Yeah. Next consideration for a perfect album is the Beatles' 1964 Hard Day's Night. This is the first all Lennon-McCartney Beatles album. No covers.
Yes.
Besides A Hard Day's Night, the top songs are Can't Buy Me Love, And I Love Her, If I Fell, I Should Have Known Better, and, the whole album. I think on a personal level... Yeah. On a personal level, my only skip is When I Get Home. I know some people don't like You Can't Do That, but I just think the lyricism for a pop band was pretty, dark and, not territory people touched at the time. Besides, if you go further back for, Hank Williams stuff.
Yeah. And, just like the blues.
Yeah.
Howlin' Wolf. Yeah, I don't have any skips on this album currently.
Okay.
Anytime at all is maybe actually, when thinking about it currently, my least favorite, but it's never been a skip for me. When I Get Home, I think is actually really strong. And You Can't Do That. I used to not like the kind of more country feel, but I do think John's vocal performance is riveting. Certainly, he was murdering every song in sight, just vocally around this time.
Yeah, not only vocally, but with the pen. Of the 13 tracks, he writes 10 of them.
He was, he was the man. He was the leader of the band, so solidly.
Yes.
Right now. I don't know, I get nervous. I'm not going perfect either. I'm going 10, but I don't think it's perfect.
I think, for me, this is better than Freewheelin', 9.5. Not quite 10, which not perfect either.
Right. But we're sniffing around right now.
Yeah. Next up on my list is Bring It All Back Home by Bob Dylan.
Okay. Yeah, they're kind of in a league of their own right now in the early 60s, I'd say. That's fair to say.
We got Maggie's Farm. It's Alright Mom, Only Bleeding. Subterranean Homesick Blues.
He Goes Electric.
Yes.
This is the first one where he's, like electric. I know that he goes acoustic on the backside.
Yeah.
But this, I will say this is perfect to me.
Okay.
Would not change a single thing about it. It's, I think the electric and acoustic gimmick and the context and how, like, if somebody had written one of these songs, they'd be remembered forever. And he did it, like, 9 times on this one album.
Yeah. I think also beyond the album, just the landscape of mentioning changing folk by adding the electric guitar into it, and kind of like, I know there's a lot of groups at the time that folk was still like very popular with, but as an outsider of folk in general, Bob Dylan is the like greatest kind of folk musician. So by like shifting, the core of the genre by allowing it to sound this way also matters a lot to me, making this a perfect contender.
He's giving it to you all kind of ways. Like, Subterranean Homesick Blue very much is folk in kind of, in concept, but like rock in approach and execution. He has ballads on both sides, and then really the acoustic side is incredibly strong, and I like how he varies up the length of the songs as well. It's all kinds of flavors.
I like that the electric side is not only louder but faster as well, whereas the acoustic side is a lot more of a mood setter. This could be, I might revise if we go to a recap point after this conversation, but for now I would say, for me, a 10, more so than Hard Day's Night.
Yeah.
Still not perfect.
Your first 10, but you're not giving this a perfect.
I might come back to it.
Okay. It's a perfect for me. This is Bringing It All Back Home is a perfect album. To me.
We're not done with 65 or Dylan, as I want to get to Highway 61 Revisited, which has Like a Rolling Stone, Tombstone Blues,
Ballad of a Thin Man, Queen Jane, approximately.
Desolation Row.
Yeah. He was not missing.
No, I think...
No misses, all hits again.
It's not a step sideways, but I am starting to be not swayed by conversations we've had not on the pod, but I'm starting to just Bring It All Back Home more as an album, when I think the peaks of Highway 61 are for me higher. But I think if I'm going to say which one's closer to perfect, it's Bring It All Back Home.
Yeah. Because again, it's there are more flourishes on Bringing It All Back Home. This is just he's giving you the straight Dylan experience at this point in time, which is mind-blowingly good. Yeah, there's just a section, I'd say, basically in the middle of side one, where I think the quality noticeably dips in terms of how interested I am in what's going on. From Tombstone Blues to From Buick 6. It Takes a Lot to Laugh, It Takes a Train to Cry is maybe one of the most brilliant song titles ever.
Yeah.
But it's one of my least favorite songs on the album. I still like it though. Yeah, I would go 10, but not perfect.
Yeah. So, Bob Dylan will come back, but for now, back over to Beatles 65 for Rubber Soul. We skipped over Help. Having Dizzy Miss Lizzy and Act Naturally, for me, kind of automatically disqualified it.
Yeah, Hard Day's Night is much stronger than Help to me.
Rubber Soul, we now have, as alluded to before, more like higher concept songs. Instead of all like kind of positive feelings, we see more complicated side like Harrison's Think for Yourself or Nowhere Man. We also see the sitar now in Western pop rock music.
Yeah, did Paint It Black get there first? I feel like Brian Jones got his hands on a sitar, and George was like, "Ooh, look at that."
You see when Paint It Black came out, or you could do it, but yeah, Rubber Soul. I think we'll see how much this trend keeps going, but for me, Rubber Soul is the first one I'll I'll write in pencil perfect on.
Paint It Black came out in '66, by the way, but I still remember like them.
I think also another influence on George going to this album was the Byrds' 12-string guitar was now featured on Rubber Soul.
That beautiful Sunglow Rickenbacker 12-string.
Yes.
This is a 10, but I'm not going to go perfect.
I think it's hard to start with Drive My Car. I think if literally you chop that off, for me, I'd almost like it more than, I don't know, Revolver's so experimental.
I don't care for what goes on. And there are Ringo sung songs that I like a lot. We'll see them later, but yeah, and Run for Your Life is fine to good.
Yeah, Run for Your Life for me is actually kind of quite similar to You Can't Do That.
Okay, yeah. Right.
Both in terms of place and how it's viewed within its album and feeling.
Yeah. But I'd go 10. So how many I've given out exclusively 10s?
No, not for Freewheelin.
Okay. Freewheelin I've said fell a little bit short at the end.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's why they're contenders. It's in the name.
Yes. Now back to Dylan. If we're gonna go,
they're just sparring right now. Nobody did it like them until Brian Wilson stepped into the ring essentially. Yeah. And he stepped into the ring in large part because of the album we just talked about, Rubber Soul.
Yes.
He was showing signs. Anyways.
Yeah. The early Beach Boy stuff, quite good, and had signs of it with like, the
Get Around and Help Me Rhonda, the kind of complexity of the vocal interactions there and the song structure, those come to mind.
Yeah.
Get Around especially, even though I kind of find that song a little bit cloying and kind of
I think it was weird to me, and I don't know, like, it could be default as well, you're just super biased, but I feel like the early Beatles stuff to me just has more, somehow it being beach surf is more one note than just being a straight love pop song to me of the Beatles' early stuff.
Yeah, I think that also, even if the content is similarly samey, love is a deeper subject, certainly, and also just the sound.
Fun.
The sound. Yeah, love and fun. Well, fun's pretty deep too, but totally, and just they're not as samey as the Beach Boys. Like, certainly the Beach Boys were doing a lot of interesting things, but at a certain point you can kind of be like, yeah, I've seen one, I've heard one, I've heard them all.
Yeah, I think the song, not to drag on the Beach Boys too long before we get to, you know what's coming with Pet Sounds, but In My Room, I think, is the closest, introspective song.
Yeah, that's a banger and a half.
Mm-hmm. But we're going to Blonde on Blonde by Dylan now.
Many Dylan heads have this number one.
I don't know. Again, the three albums that, like the two before, Bringing in Highway, and this all fight for it for me. I know a lot of people will have later on Blood on the Tracks up in that conversation as well.
Right.
Up there with Kanye of like greatest three albums in a row.
3 album runs, yeah. You would be hard pressed to find anything better than this. Kind of, it's giving physical graffiti.
Yes.
With the length and the quality, and its place in the discography.
There are times where Visions of Joanna is just my favorite Dylan song, besides like maybe Masters of War.
Yeah, that song is absolutely incredible. Side 3, I think, is my least favorite. I actually do have kind of a soft spot for Sad Eyed Lady and Nolan. but side 3 I think is where it drops below 10 for me and into like a 9.5.
I just wished either album, Highway or Blonde on Blonde, featured positively 4th Street.
Yeah, that would have been a nice addition.
I'd say Blonde on Blonde for me is a super strong 9 or soft 10, but not perfect. I still think the previous two to me are more perfect for Dylan.
So we don't have a consensus perfect yet, but something tells me that we will soon. Rubber Soul got a perfect from you.
Yes.
And Bringing It All Back Home got a perfect from me.
Yes.
I should be writing that down.
Yeah.
Just so we can do a recap.
As you set that up, I think, unless you have Blood on the Tracks on your list, I think we're going to close the book on Dylan for now and maybe forever until we recap him. But
yeah, I do not have Blood on the Tracks or Love and Theft, which is also viewed as like a big comeback for him. I don't have either of those on here.
Okay. So we'll see you with Bringing It All Back Home later. But for now, we're going to move on to Revolver, which during the Beatles run, it was seen that Sgt. Pepper's was the masterpiece album, but I think at the, 2009, when all those remasters come out, talks of, actually Revolver was the best Beatles album.
Yeah, Revolver sits kind of in the sort of, it's kind of the consensus greatest album of all time.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think Pet Sounds gets talked about as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Revolver to me is, I think, topping a lot of lists, maybe the most lists, and for good reason.
Yeah, I mean, people would point to Dr. Rubber or Yellow Submarine as low points, but I think both of them really serve their place.
Dr. Robert's amazing. I used to be a Dr. Robert hater, but in the album, it just it gives a little bit of aggression, because you need to contrast with For No One and Got to Get You Into My Life, in that run there. Dr. Robert's catchy. I like the guitar tone there, especially maybe more so than the playing. For me, weirdly, the weakest parts of this album now are the 2 McCartney songs on side 2. Good Day Sunshine and Got to Get You Into My Life have slipped for me.
It's interesting because you used to be a Got to Get You in My Life pusher.
Yes, when we ranked the Beatles songs, I was fighting hard, and that was a very contentious experiment we had. But yes, it has slipped for me, and once again, I find myself really just being absolutely wowed by everything Lennon has to say here. She Said, Andrew Bird Can Sing, I'm Only Sleeping, Dr. Robert, Tomorrow Never Knows. Those first few songs I mentioned have all been risers for me. I only liked them more as time goes on. Andrew Bird Can Sing and She Said.
Oh,
in
yeah.
particular. And then, sorry.
Yeah, I had a moment with She Said as well.
And Tomorrow Never Knows is around the greatest song ever made-ish.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, accepted as a top 10 Beatles song. I mean, if you watch the anthology documentary, there's the only section where all 3 of them are together, except for, making the 2 songs for that documentary, is the 3 of them listening to Tomorrow Never Knows and going, wow, yeah, this is crazy.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Beans. I have a really fantastic memory of just blasting that song with my windows down, pulling out of my high school going to the beach.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a vibe, man. Perfect for me.
Perfect for me as well. I think with Rubber Soul, I think I gave it a soft perfect, even though you could skip Drive My Car for me. But for Revolver, I truly can't skip any song.
No skips for me either. The Ringo song here is good. Yellow Submarine it's for the children, but it's for everybody. I have a Yellow Submarine related tattoo, so I'm gonna be biased maybe. But yeah, they did it. Wow.
All right. Briefly, moving off the Beatles, in response to Rubber Soul, Pet Sounds by Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys.
I hate to say it, but part of me sometimes feels like Brian Wilson literally mogged the Beatles with this one. I can do a Mo Betta.
It's definitely like Super Saiyan level increase from the rest of Beach Boy stuff at the time. I'm just not sure if the whole album. I hate this because it's gonna sound like I agree with Mike Love, which I never want to do. But some of the lyricism I think is a little too highfalutin lost on me. But I could be a simpleton.
I'm gonna agree with Mike Glove and punch you. Stuff like he even dumbed because he was working with this guy Van Dyke Parks for the lyrics.
Yeah.
A weird, like a deep weirdo. He is a deeply weird man. If you listen to his solo stuff, which I enjoy, you have to have your brain in a certain mode to. I don't mean to be like a Rick and Morty guy. You have to have a certain level of intelligence to appreciate what Van Dyke Parks has to say. But you literally do. You just admitted it yourself as well. So, Don't Talk, Put Your Head on My Shoulder has like a weird place in my mind. That might be my favorite song now.
I will say in defense of my perhaps whack take, I do prefer the hang on to your ego version instead of I know there's an answer.
I wanted to bring that up as well, but also it's kind of a it's funny because it's Brian Wilson's like anti-hippie song, like anti-LSD, but he's also talking to himself. He can't hang on to it. Making this album led to, and also maybe getting involved with Van Dyke Parks, and Van Dyke Parks is like to party, if you know what I mean.
I thought Van Dyke was Smile, the next up, and this was Asher.
Oh, is that? I thought that he was also involved with this one, but you could be. Definitely Asher was here. No, you're probably right. But in any case, it kind of made him a little bit insane.
Yeah, no, I think music in general kind of made Brian insane. He not only with Beatles via Rubber Soul and Sgt. Pepper's, but he would listen to Be My Baby by the Ronettes for days straight.
What's that other song he was in? Shortening Bread, right? The song?
Yeah, just listening to Andrew Sisters harmonies.
Right.
I don't know if it was Shortening Bread, but
I think he's gone on record and saying my favorite song is Shortening Bread. Which is swag. I have this as this is the first no-brainer perfect for me.
Oh yeah, this is a perfect. I said some shit to I don't know,
suspense.
Bring down maybe the uncontended or genius of Brian, but no, this is a perfect album.
The glazing can only go so far when it comes to Brian. We need to chill on him a little.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no Van Dyke writing credits here. It was all Asher. So I apologize for that. But yeah, Van Dyke got in the mix for this next album.
Still, doesn't take away the fact that Van Dyke is a weird individual.
And turned Brian Wilson on to some other things besides weird music and weird lyrics as well.
Yeah.
Supposedly, allegedly.
I want to briefly talk about Smile, the
lost masterpiece.
Yeah, the lost masterpiece of Brian Wilson. We eventually got a not as great version that we would want in 2004.
With his vocals are pretty strong still, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that album's great. It's sits at a 9 for me probably, or somewhere around, maybe a hard 8. But we also got the Smile Sessions, which is a compilation of almost all the stuff that was suitable for release that was in Diamond Durham. You get 10, 20 versions or takes of Good Vibrations, which is a treat.
Yeah.
To hear what they were cooking.
Well, and one thing that I actually like about that version of Good Vibrations on Smile is I prefer the lyrics. It's just obviously you're not gonna compete with your voice from 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But I like the actual words in the older Good Vibrations more than on what we got for Smiley Smile.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. And there's this version of Good Vibrations from the sessions that kind of ends with this coda of and that build up that's really beautiful, really rich, deep soundscape there to end it. The Smile Sessions for me is a 10, but in no way could you ever call that album. It's an unfinished product. It's not perfect.
Right. Sgt. Pepper's.
It's a really good album.
Yeah. It was the first album that the Beatles just made with the no touring functionality, just in the studio, what can we do?
Yeah.
And I would say, for me, again, at the time when it came out, it was like, this is the masterpiece album. For me, like, I think it's one of those ones, compared to maybe, like, except for Bring It All Back Home, it's one where it's better listening to all of it. I don't like picking out tracks of it if I'm going to critique this album.
Yeah, I mean, people call it a concept album, but it's not really a concept album.
The concept is we're a band.
Yeah, the concept is we're a band, and also we live in England.
Yeah, great concept.
It's a very English album. It reminds me of the Kinks in that way. Which,
yes.
Unfortunately, none of their individual albums get to this level, but I do get Kinks vibes from this one in a very complimentary way. And a lot of these songs have grown on me. I used to think that in the context of their discography, Sgt. Pepper's was like very mid, like almost like bottom half of the discog for me. But now it's probably just barely in the top half. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But songs like Lovely Rita and She's Leaving Home, especially, I really have been digging She's Leaving Home lately. It's a beautiful song, and again, kind of like the Hang On to Your Ego, it's kind of square.
Mm-hmm.
But Paul's just square. Even if his tastes at this time were more avant-garde and almost working.
And this also features the best star song with Little Help from My Friends.
Yeah.
And I think its only contender might be Garden.
Yeah, I mean, I like Yellow Submarine more than Octopus Submarine.
Well, then there you have it. Probably Friends is the best one then.
Friends is the best one for sure. What's the best one that he wrote?
Best one that he wrote? If you're not counting Garden, because there are some Harrison involvement, his best song that he wrote is probably Don't Pass Me By.
I think so as well.
Because even in the solo stuff, It Took Come Easy and Photograph, I think, are also both Harrison assisted.
Yeah. Him and Harrison were boys.
Oh, yeah. You gotta be when you're the two not on the writing credits.
Yeah, when you're dealing with two of the two best songwriters that have ever lived.
Yeah, the two of the top two to ever do it.
Yeah.
Alright, we're 35 minutes in. We're out of the purely Beatles Dylan section.
Yeah, with one Wilson aside.
So there probably is going to be a part 2. This is probably a multi-part series.
I would say that this is going to be a multi-part series.
Alright.
And we're not even going that slow, in my opinion.
No,
we're just barely touching on the songs, what we like, what we dislike. So.
Sgt. Pepper's perfect, though?
No.
I'd say, for me, this is 10 not perfect.
I wouldn't even give it a 10.
Ooh.
I'd give it like a 9.4, let's say.
Okay, Metacritic.
Pitchfork. No, that's Pitchfork style.
Oh, yeah, Metacritic does straight 100 out of 100.
Which is what Pitchfork is also doing, but they like the decimals.
Velvet Underground. With Velvet Underground.
The Banana album.
Mm-hmm.
Banana! The Minion album.
We're going to a nice, more aesthetically late 60s chunk now.
Yeah, this album's grimy, very New York, like American ass band. They're kind of so overrated that they became underrated for a time, I want to say. I like them a lot more than you do, I also want to say. I'm fairly certain.
Yes.
But I have the track list pulled up.
Probably, again, I've, before being fascinated with the album in general, Sunday Morning was a regular play for me. But I think when I listen to the album, I'll Be Your Mirror and Femme Fatale stick out to me.
To Nico.
Yes.
To Nico's song. Yeah, she's got a really unique and pretty voice, a lower register there that I think works perfectly with what Velvet Underground are doing behind her on those tracks. Femme Fatale for sure sticks out for me, but I'm more into the Lou Reed stuff. and the John Cale, particularly the Black Angels Death song.
Mhm.
And I'm Waiting for the Man. I'm Waiting for the Man just stays on that one chord, and is so driving and intense and frantic. And their drummer, I want to say her name's Mo, is pretty cool. She's just got that, she's banging that floor tom.
And I think Velvet Underground just like they were very cool in like again the cool way where you just don't talk about being cool. They just like by being themselves, it was the most natural like kind of like appeal.
Yeah, they're always like doing heroin and hanging out with transsexual prostitutes. Just cool.
Just cool stuff.
Really cool stuff. I mean, that features heavily in the lyrics too. Drug abuse, sex work, sadomasochism, just general deviancy.
That's
very,
cool.
Very rock and roll, man. I have this as a perfect album.
I also have this as a perfect album.
The banana wins! Sound like Hans Landon.
Revolver, Velvet Underground, Bring It All Back Home, kind of Rubber Soul, so far.
So it's kind of Bringing It All Back Home. It was me for Bringing, you for Rubber Soul, and then Consensus was actually
Pet Sounds,
Pet
as well.
Sounds and Velvet Underground and Nico.
Yes. Next on my list is the U.S. version of Jimi Hendrix's Are You Experienced?
Yes, important to note, not the UK release, which I believe came out first. He was more popular in England than in the United States for some time.
Yes.
Because America is racist,
Mm-hmm.
more racist than England. England's also very racist at this time, but against maybe different people usually.
Yeah.
And they didn't do slavery as recently as we did, and they didn't have such insane Jim Crow.
Yeah, it's, an apples and oranges of racism between England and America, but being from America, we noticed
racist orange.
We kind of have a worse taste with the American ones, being from America. But I don't think it's Purple Haze is not in the UK version.
Purple Haze is not there.
You fucking need that.
You also need Hey Joe.
Oh, Hey Joe's not in there.
Yeah,
So
two best songs, maybe.
yeah, so need those.
Definitely need those.
I think if we're gonna talk about 3 album runs, all 3 Hendrix pretty up there.
Yeah, definitely. He would be in the combo.
But this is this US version is definitely the only one I'd consider a perfect album.
Yeah. I don't have it as perfect because of like a little 3-song run on side 1.
Mm-hmm.
Love or Confusion, May This Be Love, I Don't Live Today. They're not iconic in the same way pretty much every other track is.
Yeah, I think for me, I might be higher on this album than you are, because the only one I don't care about is I Don't Live Today.
I think you're a little higher, but I'm quite high. Isolate that.
Yeah.
Really, the thing about Hendrix is that he goes so crazy on his instrument.
Yeah, he's the best to do it on that instrument.
Yeah, he really freaks it hard. I have this as a 9.9.
Yeah, I have it as a high 9.
Yeah.
For me,
he's the coolest guy who ever lived, also, and it's crazy he died so young because he put out so much.
Well, he never got to get old and be uncool.
I like his singing. I think his singing is underrated. It's very breezy delivery.
I mean, there's still Hey Joe, but I think in the next album, Axis, the storytelling and his lyrics go up a level.
Mm-hmm. And he marries hard rock and psychedelia in such a natural way, and some of his delivery, some of the beats of his delivery, I've had this guy on the brain recently, but he reminds me of Mitch Hedberg sometimes.
Yeah, I see that. Up next and completing this trio is Odyssey and Oracle by Zombies.
This is a Cade classic.
Joint, yeah.
This is a Cade joint.
This is Odyssey and Oracle, bigly supported by Grink.
Yes. I would get a tattoo based on this one as well. The cover's nasty.
Yeah. I definitely can't speak to this to the degree of you, but I, besides the obvious time of the season, am a big fan of Rose for Emily, Friends of Mine, and
This will be our year. I always like listening to that song on New Year's Day. It's a good pump-up song for the year. Never works out.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Hasn't worked out since 2014.
We will get there. 2015 was pretty sweet.
Oh, I was just for Giants.
Oh yeah. Well, the less we speak of them, the better. It's really good. I'm looking at it right now. I would put it at like a 9, like a low 9.
I agree.
It's so fun to listen to for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
The first time listening to it front to back, you will go crazy at how sweet it is. What do you think of Butcher's Tale?
Butcher's Tale?
My mind can't stop shaking.
It's good. It's definitely not a skip, but it's not, for me, a highlight.
Yeah. I like have a love-hate relationship with that song, kind of. It would be something that I would remove to get this album to become perfect, I think. Okay.
Where are we at? 45 minutes? Okay. Music from Big Pink by the band.
I'm shocked that this made your list, personally.
It made my list. For me, it was trying to get to 60.
Yeah, nice round. We love a round number.
Mm-hmm.
Hate sharp number.
Yeah, I'm not good with edgy numbers. But Tears of Rage, Long Black Veil, I Shall Be Released. Insane songs.
There's also The Wait.
Everyone who knows
yeah.
about The Wait.
Long Black Veil, I think, is a country ballad that they didn't write, but they execute it brilliantly.
Yeah. Not a 10. For me, this is a stronger 9 than Oracle.
I would put this more in the high 8 level, actually. We're going to talk about this later, but this is another good one to put on, like, for the room.
Yeah, I feel like, I think there's people who are aware of the band, there's too much talk of, like, how much of a aesthetic they are. But, yeah, this is definitely not a, like, I'm going to critique this album with headphones on in my bedroom.
Yeah. It's more of a Chad album than a Virgin album.
On with the 60s we go, back to the Beatles with White Album, which we kind of mentioned at the top.
Yeah, this is a 10, but not perfect for the reason... White Album's kind of basically, giving the White Album a 10, but not a perfect, is kind of like an explanation for the rubric and the criteria of what we mean by perfect.
Yeah. White Album is just a fun experiment to what songs would you cut to make it perfect?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good bank for that.
I wouldn't delete a single song from existing. I want all of them.
Right, which is why, as Paul McCartney put, why they didn't.
Exactly, and it is it's a very strong 10 also. Yeah. But it would just be it would not be in the spirit of what we are trying to do to call it perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Check out Revolution 9, by the way. Preferably, like, when you're really depressed, and maybe smoke some weed and listen to it, like, 3 times a day.
Yeah, for me, it was most eye-opening when I was just walking my dog at night at 11 p.m. one time.
And it is crazy. I just did a terrible podcast lip sync. But it is crazy that Paul really was the guy who was more into, like, the avant-garde sound collage type stuff and the experimental studio stuff. And John just said, okay, well, I'm doing this better than you ever could, and we're putting it in.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Healthy rivalry that sometimes may be going unhealthy. Astral Weeks.
Lennon was not healthy at this time.
No.
Astral Weeks. Oh boy, I could talk about this album for an hour.
That was the first album he met Yoko on.
Yeah.
Yeah, this album I only listened to for the first time yesterday.
Tell me about it.
I enjoyed like the lounge folk vibe. It was a lot of like, it was kind of like for me listening to Tame Impala, where I didn't really get not only what the lyrics were trying to say, but literally what was being said. I missed on a lot of it.
Van does go kind of psycho mode. So it makes sense that you don't know what the lyrics are trying to say because it's kind of gibber. Like he improvised the lyrics.
Yeah.
He didn't know what he was going to say when he got in the booth, and he just let the music, take him.
Yeah, I did read that it was done in like 2 sessions with a couple overdub time.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
And this is the guy who was like, "You might wanna go."
Yeah,
and it's kind of an annoying song.
And right after this was Moondance,
which I like.
Mm-hmm.
Caravan's an awesome song, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Astral Weeks, another fantastic drug album. Honestly,
yes.
I don't like, but I mean, you can't get around it really with this one.
I did like with the, I don't know if they were session musicians or the group that he'll have from this point on, but they brought like a mature bluesiness factor to this.
There's a bluesiness there that's really, you put it perfectly, a mature bluesiness.
Which was refreshing against the other sounds of this time.
Yeah, totally in its context is like extra mind-blowing. I'm going to use that phrase a lot. A perfect album tends to blow your mind when you listen to it. And it so I kind of think of it, but also there's like a classical music aspect to it too.
It's like, it's polished, but not like clean.
Whoa, dude. I'm stealing that. I'm about to drop that in a cafe, baby. Polished but not clean. I totally agree. I could not have said it better myself. So like there's like song cycles. A lot of songs like sound the same, but they're not the same. And you get into just this mode of like you lock in at a certain point, and you like either the record is gonna click for you or it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I think that's the only thing preventing me from saying that it's perfect. I would give it a 10 though.
I would give it. 8 tracks. None of them are skips.
Most of them are 5 minutes or longer, with a few 7 minutes and the 9-minute Madame George, which might be the best song on the album.
Yeah.
I had 9 minutes, like almost 10 minutes, but
can't skip it.
And I wouldn't want it to be any shorter.
I'd say high 9 for me.
That's pretty especially with you only having listened to it recently.
Just because, especially when like, if I'm like in a mode where I'm sitting down and listening to albums, there are some times where I have the strong urge, like I get the gist of this song, but I feel like that would disturb doing it to Astral Weeks. You
need the whole length. There's no. I'm gonna hit you with. There is no gist.
I think appropriately, if you were listening to this on vinyl, the only break you get is flipping it over between Cypress Avenue and the complete a tempo shift in the way Young Lovers do.
It's really well constructed. I'm gonna break the record for Van Morrison quotes on a podcast and quote him again. He says, "The songs are poetic stories, so the meaning is the same as always, timeless and unchanging. The songs are works of fiction that will inherently have a different meaning for different people. People take from it whatever their disposition to take from it is."
There's a certain rapper that also sounds like when describing music, but I forget who right now.
Yeah, I think I also couldn't pull the actual name, though. All right, are we going to... what?
Let's finish this. Let's go until the 60s are done.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we can get out of the 60s, I like our chances for next time.
So... the last and final Beatles representative for me is Abbey Road.
Yeah.
They finished Let It Be, their most contentious album, and honestly will always, despite the story and circumstance of how they made it, will never escape being in their bottom half. So they made a nice one that had like 7 great songs, and then the medley on it.
I'm a medley pusher. I'm very into considering the medley kind of one whole piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very interesting, reflects a lot of their strengths and some of their weaknesses. Maxwell Silver Hammer is like disqualifyingly not good to me.
Yeah, they all thought so too, except for Paul.
So bang that motherfucking gavel on the anvil. I think it was a hammer or something. But yeah, he's like, Mal, bang it again. We're gonna do this one more time.
But so for me, growing up, I thought the medley was just a not as intended, just blend of unfinished songs that they made, that they edited together. But side A, I think, is brilliant with Something, Oh Darling, I Want You.
I sound like a Paul Hader. It's Lennon again for me here.
It's easy to hate him.
He's very easy to love, and I love him also.
No,
but
again, it's easy to hate him, but he is the greatest to ever do it in this field of art.
Yeah, he is. I would say he's GOAT #1 with a bullet. Well, without a bullet, actually.
No,
John
John got the bullet. John had the bullets. Any parting words with Beatles and Abbey Road?
I think, again, I'm going to have to step in and say it can't be, like, I want to say this is perfect, but I don't think I can. I think I just have to give it a 10 and move on.
I think you have to give it a 10 or 9 and move on.
It's a 10 for me. High 9.
And my last one on my list for the 60s was The Band.
Oh, damn, this guy. Another great album cover, I have to say.
Oh, yeah.
I like that album cover. It's a nice picture.
It's really cool to have a band when you're not the Beatles and could have 3 guys be the singer.
I love all of what they do. So, like, I think each is always serving the song.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe I would go Danko as my favorite, or Danko as my favorite of the 3, but I love all 3. And Levon really brings an American credibility that they needed.
Yeah. He's Drove Old Dixie Down, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Virgil Kane.
And then I think it's also nice to end on this song, or this album, because it features maybe the best produced song of the 60s, besides maybe God Only Knows, with King Harvest.
King Harvest's production is wild. There is a good YouTube clip kind of isolating the elements going over them.
Mm-hmm.
Check that out. I don't know if you can put. I'll find that link.
I can put the link in.
Post it. I would just, as an aside, Be My Baby, I think would be in the running.
Yeah. And Tomorrow Ever Knows.
The Phil Spector influence on Brian Wilson has been long talked about. In any case, yes. King Harvest. I don't have a skip, actually. I can't find one.
I would have one skip, and I wished it was replaced with Get Up Jake, and that's Jawbone.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would say if there's one that I was going to maybe skip, it would have been Lookout Cleveland.
I like Lookout Cleveland for
I
me.
like it too. That's why I don't skip it. Jawbone, I like what it adds to the album. Oh, good golly. That side 1 is monstrous, though.
Yeah. And it ends with Unfaithful Servant and King Harvest.
Yeah.
When we're done with all parts, and we circle back, it might change, similar to my rating with Bring It All Back Home. I might upgrade it from 10 to perfect, but for me, I'm putting it as a perfect. The band's the band.
Mark me down for perfect.
Nice.
Did I give Astral Weeks a perfect?
No.
Okay, I gave it just a 10, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I gave it a 9.
Alright. So we started off hesitant. I'll just recap it for this episode where we were like at an hour now.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. Really quickly. I said Bring It All Back Home was the first perfect. Cam said Rubber Soul was the first perfect. The first consensus perfect was Revolver. We then also agreed, we had no more solo perfects. We also agreed that Pet Sounds, Velvet Underground, and Nico, and the band self-titled are all perfect. So we have 4 consensus perfects from the 60s.
Nice. Yeah, and next week's episode will probably be us going through probably the 70s and 80s, I imagine, for part
70s
two.
and 80s. And we might even get a little bit through the 90s as well, if I had to guess.
Yeah, probably. But for now, this one will be, hunting the perfect album, the 60s was this one. All right, well, at Winning Time Pod on Twitter and Winning Time Tape, Spotify, and YouTube for more of this.
Don't follow me on Twitter. You won't find me.
You won't find him.
And don't do it. If you do, you won't.
Now when she went to Chicago.